3 topics, 60 minutes covering the biggest news in the ECHL. This is the 3 Periods Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Matthew Will and Matthew Harding.
Congrats. You made it through week 1 of the ECHL season. Had the excitement we all kind of expected, and it had some surprising moments for all of us as well, I believe. So we'll get to that all and kind of break down what happened in opening weekend and what's happening this weekend in our third segment. We're going to start with probably the biggest news of the week so far. Just a heads up for everyone watching this here on Friday. We're recording this Wednesday night due to a couple of scheduling conflicts this week. So there might be a couple added facts that get added in since we record. Check at 3 Periods Pod on Twitter, and we'll keep you updated with all of those. But probably the biggest news of the week right now is what's going on up in St. John's. We already knew that there was some stuff going on throughout this offseason. Started back in July when Andrew Zadanowski mentioned that there was the agreement for their long-term lease that never got ratified. Went out to then the Growlers putting out their own statement about the miscommunications between Deacon Sports and St. John's Sports. Then went on to Todd Skirving of the Newfoundland Growlers mentioning his thoughts on it and saying that he wished it was all sit down, let's talk face to face, when it wasn't. Then the Growlers come out again and say that, we finally reached this 3-year agreement. That happened on August 25th. It was along with their big ticket sales promotion that was called It's the Least We Can Do. And that was the big mention there. And then on September 10th, the Edge basketball team mentioned that they had been bought by Deacon Sports. That's Dean McDonald's buying both of the two.
Right.
And then the season opened on October 21st. Dean McDonald mentioned that he was excited to be in an arena playing hockey. They were at Trois-Rivières that night. A couple nights later, they played. He got to go down to the Iowa home opener, his other team he owns, and mentioned that he was ecstatic with the way that things had been going there in Iowa. And that's when he started hinting at some of the miscommunications and stuff going on in Newfoundland. There was definitely some reading between the lines going on with Dean McDonald. That he was given a key to the city by the Coralville mayor and stated his thoughts pretty vividly on Twitter, mentioning that I'll quote it exactly. He said, "Key to the city of Coralville. Wonder if we qualify anywhere else. Actually, not in St. John's." So at that point, we knew exactly what Dean McDonald thought of the situation, and then responded to a tweet later that day when someone said, "Man, I hope they don't go too far from Newfoundland," saying, "Don't worry, we're not going far." So there is a lot of speculation going in just into this week. And then today, Wednesday morning, the St. John's Sports Entertainment was let known that they had been suspended, or St. John's Sports Entertainment suspended Deacon Sports Entertainment from their use of Mile One Center due to allegations of, quote, disrespectful workplace conduct against staff at Deacon Sports Entertainment that must be fully investigated, end quote. Later here in the day, the Growlers announced that they'll play their first 6 home games at the home of their AHL affiliate, the Toronto Marlies. That's the Coca-Cola Coliseum. And then just a few minutes ago, the Newfoundland Growlers and Deacon Sports Entertainment came out and said that they had denied the allegations that were against them and the accusations, but they welcomed an independent investigation.
Go ahead.
There's a lot going on here. So.
Yeah, there is a lot going on. And our man on the ground there is one Zack Power, and he's joining us on the show. Zack, how you doing? Thanks very much for doing this.
Hey, I'm doing good.
Let's actually start. I don't know if you had a chance to hear Matt's, soliloquy of what happened there with Mile One and all of the stuff that happened over the summer. Quickly, just give us your take on what has happened here over the last 60 to 90 days with the Newfoundland Growlers and the Mile One Center and all the drama going on with that.
Yeah, well, what a great time to change your name, right? I mean, that just makes things even better. So they're actually down there today putting up the signage that says Mary Brown Center. And that was kind of the big thing, because down in Newfoundland, Big Mary Monday is huge. It's a local chicken shop and it's a chicken sandwich. That's all it is. But people will line up right around the building. And so that was supposed to be part of the game. And that's something that I was hearing from a lot of people. So I can't wait to go down to the mile. Everyone still calls it Mile One. Can't wait to go down to Mile One and get a Big Mary. But nonetheless, uh, the city of St. John's, they've been having a little bit of troubles with Mile One. It hasn't really been touched in the past 20 years. I mean, you can walk around the concourse and it's still CRT TVs hung up on the wall, kind of thing.
Oh wow.
Uh, they weren't able to pay for the LED surround boards, kind of thing, that goes up over the stands. They weren't able to pay their contractor for that, and that's where the problems really started. Is when the kind of edge, or Dean McDonald noticed that the Edge were kind of left on the hook for that, because that was something that the Edge wanted. And I think it was in the wings for a long time for Dean McDonald to go and buy the Edge. So that was one thing. And then the city of St. John's made a statement way back in about May or June saying, "Hey, I don't think we really have the money to kind of go out and plow the sidewalks for snow." And that was kind of when Dean McDonald made one of his first big jabs is, "Hey, we've been trying to buy the Mile One Center, and we'll give you the money that you're able to uh, plow the sidewalks if you let us buy the arena." And that was one of the things that McDonald really wanted to make sure, is that he was mentioning to the city is, "Hey, we'll be able to let you guys come in if you want to do events like the Briar." And that was one of the big talking points for the city, is that, the Briar, the curling in Newfoundland did very well, and they want to make sure that they have the city under the arena under their control.
So do the events that happened on Wednesday with the Growlers being kicked out of Mile One Center, does that surprise you, or does this feel like a culmination of all of the mistrust that has gone on since really the beginning of the franchise and their play in Mile One Center, and does this really just feel like a culmination of all of that?
You know what? I don't think that there's a single Newfoundland Growlers fan who was surprised.
Mm.
I mean, it's kind of shocking to hear in a sense, but like it's feels like it's been a long time coming. And I think the biggest thing was when the other day they said, "Oh, hey, Mile One Center is not letting us sell tickets for some reason." That was kind of the big thing. All right, well, I think it's time we move to the Glacier, which is the next biggest in that town.
Mhm.
So, I mean, for a lot of Newfoundland Growlers fans, it's shocking to hear, but for me, I'm not surprised. I mean, I think that this has been going on a long time, and it was only a matter of time before they got moved out, and who knows, it may be permanent.
There's been a lot of positive talk regarding the relationship between Toronto, Maple Leafs, Marlies, and the Growlers. How beneficial was that relationship to helping them out and giving them a place to play, at least for the first 6 games?
Oh, man, and you know what? St. John's has such a big following of Toronto
Yeah.
and all its affiliated leagues. Like, you gotta think about, we had the St. John's Maple Leafs for umpteen years, and so that kind of, when they found out that there was an AHL, Toronto affiliate coming, that was sort of the big thing. And then they've been really working with the Maple Leafs, and you'll see them on Twitter interacting, and the Maple Leafs will sometimes interact back. They had St. John's Maple Leafs night, sort of thing. And so they're really connected. And they had even a couple preseason games at Mile One Center, something that doesn't really happen in Newfoundland. And so the Maple Leafs have really been working with Newfoundland. And so I wasn't surprised to see that, though, that they were going to the Coca-Cola Coliseum, and what that looks like now after 6 games is going to be interesting.
I think it's an open question here, boys, whether or not Newfoundland or the Growlers return back to St. John this year, to the Mile One Center. I mean, we hear about these investigations going on from independent arbiters all the time, and they take months, not weeks. So here we are in late October, almost the 1st of November. You got to wonder if this is a situation that is tenable for this season in in St. John. And if I'm Dean McDonald, uh, reading from reading between the lines of their statement this afternoon, Dean McDonald is irate, and that ownership group is irate, and they probably have already put shovels in the sand like tomorrow on a new arena there, because I know that if he didn't want Mile One, he wanted an arena of his own.
And that was one of the things too that he was trying to urge Danny Williams, who was the former owner of the St. John's Ice Caps, because he has a huge plot of land. It's its own city up there. And so he's trying to convince Danny Williams now to start making plans for an arena. And I think those plans are in place, but it doesn't get built overnight, sort
Right.
of thing. And who knows, by the time that is built, the relationship could be gone for the Growlers, that connection. The St. John's really, really was starting to embrace the Growlers.
Yeah.
And after a Kelly Cup win, and they were doing really well last going off before the COVID pandemic, they were first in their division, sort of thing. And it's been almost 600 days since they've seen them play live. So,
Yeah. And that kind of, we don't know the allegations of unfair workplace or whatever that is, but it seems odd that, there's not been a Newfoundland Growlers representative probably in that area since, from the time COVID came and the league shut down. They didn't play at all last season. So you have to think that maybe they got their wheels going again April, May. So this has to be a very finite period of time for these allegations to surface, given the fact that for the previous 500 days, there were hardly any staff at all in Newfoundland working to. They didn't know when the next hockey game was going to be played. So, I'm not going to call BS on the allegations because we don't know. But it does seem like all of this has happened in a very finite period of time.
yeah, and that's the other thing too. The Growlers really haven't been in Mile One Center, and I was actually in Mile One Center not too long ago, and that team store is pretty well empty. There's nothing in there, and all the Edge logos are stripped in there. I didn't really see any Newfoundland Growlers logos, but I wasn't really looking hard. And they really haven't been out. They were out on the sidewalks kind of thing, selling some merchandise over the year. They had like a Growler Day or something. But really, they haven't really done anything in the past 2 years. And they're not practicing at the Mile One Center either. They're practicing at the Glacier. So I mean, they haven't really had any, unless there was something internally kind of thing in this little dispute that they're having. That's the only way I could look at it.
Yeah. Ma'am.
Well, I guess now we turn the page from some of that and look at the Growlers this year. And once again, they're off to a fantastic start. A lot of that is aided by the Toronto Marlies, who you cover. And as you can see on screen now, you can follow Zach at FPH Marlies, and he'll update you all year. Some of the best coverage on our entire FPH team comes from this man. So give him a follow. They start the year right now 4-0, 3 of their wins against Trois-Rivières, and they have no sign of stopping anytime soon. What do you make of this Growlers team this year?
Oh, it's a fantastic year, and I think that every year they're starting more and more to learn about their prospects and how they're using that. Like their ECHL goalie that they have now, Prezzelli, he's been absolutely fantastic. I can't get over it, right? He's ECHL Star of the Week kind of thing. Like I said, they're one of the best teams right now in the Toronto organization, even in NBA. But it's one of those things where they've been just riding off this momentum. They had a really strong game against Trois-Rivières. I had a chance to watch most of that, and they played really well. They're playing all over them, and then they had another solid game against Adirondack. And so that's one of the things, and they're just riding off this momentum, and it just seems like the team can't lose. It's been their third real season playing now, and for 3 seasons they've been dominating.
What do you think the being with the Marlies and playing in Coca-Cola Coliseum and really not having the trouble of, if you will, of having Toronto scouts going and seeing them and helping develop. What do you think that will do for the dozen plus AHL players that are on that Growlers roster?
Yeah, and I think that for them, it kind of gives them a little bit of hope in a sense that they're that much closer. I think that, you know what, I'd be more prone to pick up a player from the AHL if they're already sitting in my rink there watching the games anyways. We may as well put them out on the ice, and it's an opportunity for some of these guys to get a start, and it costs the Maple Leafs next to nothing, right? So it's that sort of thing. And sure, they're not going to have the same, I don't even know if they're going to have fans in there, but they're not going to have the same loud ranting and roaring fans that you see in Newfoundland. There's a reason why they call it a kitchen party, because it is really a time, as they would say.
Growlers fans have grown on me, and I need to get up there and see a game. That is a rabid fan base. They will follow that team to the ends of the planet. And unfortunately for that fan base, they have gone through it in their first 3 years. Aside from the Kelly Cup, all of this drama with Mile One and all of this stuff happening, it just has happened to such a good and a rabid fan base, and you just hate to see that for them. Any final thoughts on what you'll be looking for here in the next several days as we begin to turn the page and look forward for the Growlers home openers, which will begin next week?
Yeah, I think that they really have a really good team ahead. There's a couple of things that they have to work on, like on their power play, and that's mostly because I think John Snowden had a really big role in that, and that's why the Marlies' power play is actually so good. That I watched them there the other day. That was really dominating, but they're 1 for 18 so far this year. Newfoundland is. I think that for St. John's, that it's their last kick at the cat. I don't think that they'll ever have another franchise back, especially after all of this. So it's either get this cleared up or that's the end of hockey in Newfoundland.
Mm, that's unfortunate, and that comes from a Newfoundland native yourself. There, being one of those born up there in St. John's in Newfoundland. So hopefully they'll get that fixed. And thanks very much for doing this, man. And it's good to see you. And take care. All right.
Have a good one.
All right, there you go. You can follow Zack Power on Twitter at FPH Marlies. Our thanks to Zack for joining us and breaking down all of the ins and outs of the Newfoundland Growlers situation here on the pod.
I love what he brings to the conversation there. As someone who lives there and has experienced that atmosphere, you can tell that even someone who's in media like us and is our main goal is to stay unbiased at all times. You can tell that even a media member is starving for hockey to stay in Newfoundland. It's going to be heartbreaking if this team is not able to stay there.
Yeah, and I think that the government in St. John's has really done it to themselves.
Yeah.
There's been so much miscommunication between Deacon and the government in St. John that, I mean, the fan base can't get an answer, and they're, like, you hate it for him because everybody knows, like, if you look at that group, if you look at that fan base just off of the one Kelly Cup run that they had back in 2019, you instantly knew that was a fan base that was just going to soak this all up. And
they were already ride or dies.
Yeah. You had 6,000 of them. Like, they're showing up in June. They could be doing anything else, but they're at a hockey game in June watching the Kelly Cup get skated. And you just hate it for them because that is such a rabid fan base. And we just hope that they get it all worked out, because I think Zach's right. This is going to be the last kick at the can for them to have not just an affiliated hockey league in Canada, but perhaps affiliated sports there in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Yeah, and this is a big moment for them. Like I mentioned with Zach, I mean, that I would argue that the Newfoundland, Toronto Marley, and Toronto Maple Leaf affiliation is maybe the strongest one in the entire league.
Oh yeah.
There are so few affiliations that work as fluidly and as cooperatively. All three of those teams want to help the other two succeed, and you see that night in and night out with who's on those rosters helping out.
Right, and never mind who's on the rosters. You saw it today, as in the Maple Leafs saying we have a vested interest in this franchise, and we have a vested interest in every single player on that roster, every staff member, everybody else. Get them on a plane and get them to Toronto, and let's house them up here for a little bit, and we'll figure it out after 6 games. I am extremely pessimistic that they will return to Mile One this year. I'll be surprised, but I don't see it happening. I see them literally spending the entire season in Toronto.
And it's going to be tough because The Marlies have a lot of weekend home games there as well. So it might take some work with the ECHL working together with them to maybe move some games a little bit here and there and shift some a little bit. It looks like so far that the ECHL is working very well with Newfoundland so far. I mean, they were understanding in all of this and were one of the first ones to announce that the games had been moved. So the relationship that Dean McDonald already has with Ryan Creelan and the rest of the ECHL board is so valuable in a time like this. And I think this is when we're seeing the brotherhood and the family of minor league hockey coming together now.
Yeah. And you know, the league's aspect of this is, hey, we'll facilitate the schedule where needed, but ultimately lease issues belong at the team level. And that's do not expect for the league to get into the middle of this fight. This is a fight between the team, the ownership of the team, and the arena who they play from, not anybody else. So I think the league involvement today was all, on Wednesday anyway, was all you will see about that with regard to moving games and facilitating the games for the teams to make it happen for the teams. And this is, as the Growlers mentioned in their statement, a terrible inconvenience for Worcester and for Adirondack, because they have already bought plane tickets to Newfoundland. Now you have to go perhaps cancel all of those, and maybe you get a refund back. And then what do? You got now have to look at getting a bus to cross the international border and go to Toronto. It's a terrible inconvenience, days away from playing those games.
We would be having a totally different conversation, still a similar, but a different conversation if this all happens a month ago. When there were already some doubts about the Growlers' future. Then they finally had something in place, and something like this comes up. I agree with Zach. I wasn't really surprised when I saw this news start coming out this week that this all started happening, because it didn't really seem like anything was set in stone well over the summer there in late July, early August, when they started finally getting a deal together.
Yeah, it always felt like it was in the sand, right?
Yes.
Like you were just waiting for a good breeze to come along and shift the line or whatever. And
it felt like it could not, like it maybe wasn't ratified again for a second time.
Yeah.
Well,
that's fortunate for them.
That's what we have to say on the issue now. Keep an eye on at 3 Periods Pod all this week, next week, and we'll keep you updated with what we know, at least so far. And we'll give another update next Thursday night or Wednesday night, whenever we see you again, sometime next week, about how things are looking. We might not know much then, but we'll know that the Growlers are playing there in Toronto, and maybe in a couple weeks we'll have more information for you. But now we turn the page to a team also succeeding at many different levels, and that's the South Carolina Stingrays. And we are pleased to be joined by our own Travis Rogers at FPH Stingrays on Twitter. And to get his kind of thoughts on things, I want to start with last year's run, where the Stingrays went 34-23, 10-3, won 6 straight at the end of the year to get themselves into the playoffs, knock off Florida, knock off Greenville, and then take Fort Wayne to 4 games. I want to know your thoughts on last season for the Stingrays.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on tonight. I'm really looking forward to seeing the difference this year. Last year, it was almost like a reunion tour. You have to go back 2 years ago to the COVID canceled season. That was when that first core group of last year showed up. And that was a group of guys that wanted to play together again, that had played in their younger days, and they were getting the band back together for one last hurrah. And then COVID comes and shuts them down. So I almost think a lot of those players were all ready to move on, but they came back last year for unfinished business. And then they added in a lot of great pieces. Guys like Brett Sapinski that came in, and some other great additions that came in due to some clubs being out last year. But then what happens is I think you had so much veteran leadership, and maybe not leadership, but you had so many veteran players or near veteran players that knew they were coming already to a well-established, high-performing team. And I think last year's keyword was complacency. You look at what they did throughout the year, is they came back in the third period probably 10 times to get wins or to push a point at the last second. And because they knew they could, but I don't think there was a big fire in the belly last year. And then at one point they were 6th in the South Division. they were, I think, at one point 7 points out of a playoff spot. And then they started getting it together, and then they won that run, like you said, that 6 straight at the end, just to push themselves into the playoffs. And all of a sudden, everybody got clicking. And I think Florida was thinking that they were seeing the same team that they owned. Like, I want to say they were like 10-1-2 against South Carolina in the regular season last year. And I think they got caught off guard because now you have all these experienced guys that knew they were in the fight for the cup. And they, and they came through, and they went down to Florida. They had to win game 4 in 5 in Florida to advance, and they did it. And then here comes Greenville. And then you have the problems with the North Charleston Coliseum versus having to play at their practice facility in the Ice Palace. And, and they were able to get Greenville out in 4 games, but the energy in the Ice Palace was fantastic. The season ticket holders that they allowed in really helped propel that team. And then they hit a Fort Wayne team that just got the better of them. It was, those guys all had a good push. It was a little disappointing that they couldn't find what was wrong internally during the season. One of the biggest case in points, interview with Caleb Herbert, who had played with the team previously and been over in Europe and had come back. There was an interview in late March that he had when he was still saying, well, yeah, we're still trying to figure out what our identity is going to be. And that was when they were drifting out of 4th and heading down to 6th in the standings in the South. And it was just really amazing because it was like, how does a group of guys that are so experienced, not just with the Stingrays, but the AHL level and elsewhere, how have they not coalesced around that identity yet? And granted, last year was a weird year, with all the different protocols and being separated from fans and everything else. It was just tough. But going back and look at the stats, what was the big difference between 20 and last year for the Stingrays was the back end. It was the defense. You look 2 years ago, they had Christopher Bindelis and Tom Parisi, both top 10 scorers on that blue line, helping quarterback the power play and doing all those things right and chipping in offensively. Last year, the highest scoring defenseman was 11th on the team. So when you take the 7th and 9th scorer for the team out that are on the back end and all that production's pushed to the forward side, I think that also had a big impact on their regular season performance last year. And if you look at what they did recruiting wise this year, you can see they focused deeply on the back end and they worked with Hershey to get quality depth players down. And I think that the back end for the Stingrays is going to be something to watch this year.
Lots to chew on there, Travis. Let's start with the complacency. I read your piece where you interviewed Caleb Herbert, and he said that exact quote, and I think it was around February, March, maybe, when they were on the way down. And I felt the same way as you. Like, how is a veteran group struggling to figure out their identity 3 to 4 months into a season where the players are essentially in bubbles? They're not around fans. They're not out on the town. They're not out soaking up the accolades or anything like that. This is a team of all the teams that should have known their identity from Jump Street, and it should just be like, I kind of thought that they would just run away with everything. Yeah,
and I think that's what the expectation was. And then there was the fair amount of concourse grumbling that you get from fans when your team's underachieving. But it was, and you could see it when the team was having an on night, when they decided to put in a 40-minute effort or a 60-minute effort, they were unstoppable. The offensive fireworks that those guys could produce. I mean, Dan DeSalvo paired up with Cooper. Anytime Cole Uli and Max Novak were working together, and then when you had Andrew Chernchin and his old college mate Justin Florek working together, I mean, all 3 of those lines. I mean, you have to look. The third line on the Stingrays last year still put up just shy of 50 goals.
Wow.
I mean,
yeah,
they're first liners this year or second liners this year, but I mean, the depth is when your third line in ECHL is giving you 50 goals, then how are you not running away with things? And that was, I think, a bit of the concern last year.
Ryan Blair gets everything he can in recruiting this year, and you, to your point, brought back a a really vaunted defense. It's a big, physical, nasty defense. Do you feel like that the way the Fort Wayne Komets played them in the finals helped Ryan Blair go out and recruit that big, nasty defense that he feels like he's going to need when he goes up, and not necessarily the defense, but the forward group too there's one player who
Domowski.
Yeah. But do you feel like he went out and recruited that group knowing that if he wins the East, he's going to have those bodies and those resources ready to go to play a Western Conference team?
Yeah, I think that was part of it. But you also have to look. I mean, they had big bodies last year. They had, the Max Gottlieb. They had the Blake Hillman, Dylan Summerby. These are all guys that were, in the trees. But I can't speak for what was going on, but they're definitely not as physical as this young group is. Mm-hmm. I mean, the group that brought in, they signed three NHL draft picks that for whatever reason haven't panned out in their parent organizations. Massey goes up to Hershey on a PTO and wins a contract out of the deal. And he played lights out. And I think they realized they needed a better puck moving defenseman. And I think that's part of the reason. I don't think he's going to be here very long, but with Subban down with the Stingrays right now, I mean, his passing and vision on the ice is incredible. And I fully expect him, once the rust is completely off, I foresee Hershey doing a switch out. He is just overly talented for this league. But he reminds me a lot of Tom Parisi from 2 years ago. Parisi had walked away from the game for a year and then wanted just to come back, vindication that I can play the game if I want to, kind of situation. But the skills Subban brings, I think they need on that front end for scoring. But Massey looks like he's going to be able to produce and stand guys up. And you look at some of the other young kids like Vic Hadfield and Chaz Ridikoff, another big 6'3" guy that's not going to get pushed around. I think they found guys maybe with a little more fire in their belly. And as good as the Stingrays defense is right now, fans have to remember Tariq Hammond is still on a PTO in Hendersonville right now. Mm-hmm. The Golden Knights have 4D in their organization on injured reserve. And they got a lot of guys called up. Hammond has led the defensemen. I mean, he's one of the top shutdown guys, on this team, if not in the South. But he's not here. And I would still take this defense into the playoffs as it stands now. Now, between injuries, call-ups, and 71 more games to go, we'll see how it looks. But on paper, they're fantastic.
Give our listeners and viewers a 30,000-foot view of hockey in the South and the Eastern Conference, because Will and I are out here in the West, and we think that the physical brand of hockey is the brand of hockey that wins Kelly Cups, and the stats kind of prove that. But if we were to have a conversation over a beer or two, sell me on why the Eastern Conference is the better brand of hockey for the ECHL.
I think overall, you look, I think a lot of Eastern teams experimented and dabbled with the European bigger ice model of the smaller defensemen. Overall, they wanted speed and agility versus guys that can just grind you down. And now I see teams moving back. I think Jason Christie unsuccessfully down in Jacksonville really tried to get that going. And because of what Jason Christie brought into the South at Jacksonville, you started seeing a lot of other teams starting to react to that. Florida's always been a big, nasty team and tough to play against. But I think teams started experimenting a little bit, and now they're coming back. And, hockey's been around in the South for longer than people think, but it's still not as well established as people want it to be. And what brought people to the North Charleston Coliseum for 10,000 fan sellouts night after night in the early 90s when they were established was that physical hockey. It was that group of guys that didn't mind, putting up 300 penalty minutes in a season, but those guys were also chipping in 50 or 80 points as well. Guys like Dave Seitz, had no problem dropping gloves. I mean, and you can go on and on with a lot of those all those guys that are well remembered put up big penalty minutes in addition to great points. And I think, at the end of the day, this is a sport, but it's an entertainment value. And, you can go to a rock concert or you can go watch, a classical symphony. There's great things in both, but play to your fan base. And I think that's why you're starting to see those bigger teams. I think Atlanta wasn't very successful on opening night, but I think they put together a decent squad. And, even opening night with the Stingrays playing Greenville had 2 posts in that game in the second period, and they had no problems dishing it right back up with the Stingrays. I think Stingrays had a lot of emotional push with the home opener, but Greenville could be a team to reckon with as well. And I'm really excited. I don't think anybody would have thought Jacksonville would put up 5 on Florida in Estero on opening night. So I'm excited to see what that team's going to bring to the division this year.
What is the matchups between Greenville and South Carolina to start the year? Of course, South Carolina starts all 3 of their games against Greenville. What do those 3 games really set up for the Stingrays to build off of?
I think it's a little bit of momentum and validation. Validation of, these guys in Greenville did, several overtime disappointing wins. Ben Finkelstein, I think, had 2 or 3 overtime winners against the Stingrays alone last year for Greenville. But I think that it's just going to be a measuring stick. South Carolina had 4 teams at once in the ECHL, with the PD Pride and the Columbia Inferno, and then the Greenville's been through a couple iterations in South Carolina. So the rivalries in South Carolina have always been pretty tense. And I think they're the team that the Stingrays see the most this year. So to get 3 of those games out of the way and kind of set that measuring stick, is important to the team identity-wise. But, the teams you see in October are rarely the ones you see in May. So I'm not sure how much long-term other than just moral victory out of it for right now.
You already mentioned it a couple of times. What does the affiliation with Hershey really do for South Carolina?
It's been fantastic. I mean, I've been here long enough for when they were with the Hershey and Caps. They left for a couple of years and went with the Bruins and Providence, and came back. Jason Fitzsimmons, all-time great Stingray, is heavily involved, as I think his last title I saw was Director of Minor League Operations. So he works very closely with Rob Concannon, who they have a long, extensive history. So I think there's always open lines there. And in talking to the coaches, I mean, as long as I've been here, in talking to Spencer and Carberry, Ryan Warsofsky, and everybody's always like, yeah, I mean, we try to talk at least once a week, if not just a little, hey, is this guy doing this, doing that, or, whatnot. So those lines of communication always seem open. You're always seeing Stingrays guys, whether it's the trainers or whoever, they're getting asked to go to those Caps rookie camps. They're getting asked to go to the Hershey camps to fill in, and that's just exposure, up and down the line. And with the exception of maybe 1 year, I can't think of a time where there haven't been 2 or 3 contracted players down here at all times, fighting for their next look, or, just parked down here while they're waiting for things to clear up for them.
Is that an affiliation that you see lasting long term? And I know they just re-upped for, I think, another 2 or 3 years here during the off season, but is that a long-standing relationship? Because as you mentioned, Jason Fitzsimmons and Rob Concannon, I believe, were teammates on an old South Carolina Stingrays team way back when. Is that a relationship you see sustaining itself for as long as both of those gentlemen are in those capacities with Hershey and South Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, the movement between Charleston and Hershey's not horrible, in terms of grabbing a flight to Harrisburg. The Caps have always seemed really pleased with what we've done. I mean, we put probably like their past 6 NHL goalies minus Samsonov, up to them. You look at guys that, they may not have been here for, longer than a season or whatnot, but I think South Carolina has proved that there's a winning culture here in Charleston. And I think both the Capitals and the Bears are really interested in having that affiliate with a winning tradition to get guys in the right mindset. So as they come up, that's what they're already chewing on. They want to win at the next level because they want it this level. Now they want to win at the next level and keep moving up. So yeah, I don't see any changes affiliation wise unless something just really screwy happens.
I'm going to steal a question from that Harding usually asks. After a cup run last year and building a new squad this year, what does a successful year look like for the South Carolina Stingrays this year?
Another conference championship, quite frankly. Their stated goal every year is the cup, whether they get there or not. I mean, in the history of the organization, they've missed the playoffs one time, minus the COVID year. So there's an expectation that you are playing in June, no matter what. But I think, especially for Ryan Blair, getting that chance this year to kind of really, he doesn't have the reunion squad from last year. This is his team. This is, every player coming in, he had input or direct push on bringing them to Charleston. So I think he prefers a more edgy game. I think he prefers that more physical game. And looking at the guys that, Yannick Turcotte, came down from the Islanders organization last year because he needed a home, unfortunately got injured, dropping the gloves in his very second game as a Stingray, ended up being out. He's still out maybe about 2-3 weeks, we're hoping, from what I'm hearing from the team. And I think he was one of those players that, Charleston kind of looked at Hershey and said, hey, if you're going to sign a depth guy, because I think he's comparable to a Cale Kessie, somebody that can come in and just physically put another team on notice without actually fighting, but being on that ice. And Turcotte, he hasn't been able to produce points at the AHL level and consistently in the ECHL, but watching him at training camp every day, after practice, he was one of the last guys off the ice. He was taking shots. He was asking the goalies to stay, let him take a couple more shots, working with other forwards. And I think he has a little burn to get something going, offensively. So I think he could be a player to watch once he's healthy and back on the ice.
Want to kind of expand it back out to the division again. And earlier today on Wednesday, the Savannah franchise announced their team brand for the upcoming season in 22-23. The South Division will have 7 teams, and now you're looking at an I-95 rivalry where you go from Charleston to Savannah down to Jacksonville, and that really, I think, kind of cements the South, if you will. What is the excitement among Stingrays fans to have Savannah come into the fold, and overall, what does it mean to have an ECHL All-Star Classic come just a couple hundred miles down the South Carolina coast and Georgia coast to North Florida here in about 10 weeks?
Yeah, I think that's all exciting, and it's great stuff, and it's showing the strength of hockey and that fan base. With Savannah announcing, I think there was a little arched eyebrows in some corners of the interwebs with the Ghost Pirates, but I kind of sat back, and one, I like the logo. I think there's a lot they can do with that, and two, everybody said the same thing about the Swamp Rabbits when they rebranded a couple years, and they have turned that into a fantastic marketing for their team with their name. I think Savannah's going to be able to do the same. As far as Stingrays fans, and we've been talking about Savannah for a while, we have fans that come from the Beaufort. They come in from an hour and a half away. Now I'm a little, concerned that we might lose some of those folks because now they got a team 20 minutes the other direction. But I think it's going to create some great rivalries. Older Stingrays fans, remember those, Columbia's, to the rink was just at 2 hours away. PD was an hour 45 away, and Greenville's a little bit farther with about 4, but, that's a much closer, doable night trip to get down there. So I think you're going to get a lot more fans going to different barns and getting out. I mean, in the South, with us being kind of spread out, I don't think a lot of fans can appreciate, especially newer fans in the past several years, being able to go to another team's barn, and experience something different. Everybody likes their own barn, or they have their favorite things to complain about their home barn. But when you get to go to another place and you get to experience, the different concessions, the different lights, the different in-game experiences and stuff like that, I think that helps broaden the brand of the ECHL, and it makes people a little bit more willing, maybe on a long weekend when you got a rivalry, somewhere further away, but JetBlue's running a $59 promotion. Well, hey, let's go check that out. Let's, so I think it opens the doors to get fans, more, engaged with not just with their team, but with the ECHL and then hockey as a whole.
Well, our huge thanks to Travis tonight and coming on here and giving your thoughts on what could be another very exciting year of hockey down in South Carolina. The one last thing I want to ask is having an all-star game that close to you guys. Do you think, are you hearing that there's going to be a lot of fans that hope to travel down there and see it off? Yeah,
there's been a little bit of talk, and with only one game, haven't had a lot of time to really, walk the concourse and kind of get a feel. But with something that close and something that there's I see fans making that trip, for such a neat event. I mean, the last time the All-Star event was held in Charleston, they actually didn't hold a game. They just had the luncheon and the presentations and everything. So there was a lot of unhappiness with that from the fans, because you want to see the top guys. I mean, how many of those guys go on to be AHL stars or make it, a couple years down the road to the big show, or just go have great long careers. I mean, so I think that chance was something so close. I think you'll see a lot of fans bite on that.
Well, hopefully we get to see you down there in Jacksonville, my friend. You're one of the smartest guys on the staff, and I always look forward to chatting with you. All the best, my friend, and you can follow Travis on Twitter at FPH Stingrays. Travis, thanks very much for doing this with us.
Hey, no worries. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great night.
You too. Travis is one of the brightest minds on our team, man. He is
absolutely
absolute nails. And
it's exciting to hear from a team that makes a lot of noise in the ECHL, but we don't get to hear about as much because they're always in the shadow of a Florida or an Orlando, or last year a Greenville. You don't get to hear as much about them, yet they've created some of the greatest prospects in recent ECHL history. So great to hear his thoughts on it and what things look like down there in South Carolina, where hockey's starting to expand and at a very good rate.
Yeah. So I guess let's kind of open up our third period with what you need to know here as we get going for weekend number 2 of this 2021 season here, with obviously the big news today on Wednesday. I keep saying today, it's on Wednesday. Everybody's going to hear this on Friday. But the big news on Wednesday about what happened in Newfoundland. And of course you can follow Zack and follow Zack and his work there on that. But, we have video of the Pirates, of their I guess their reveal here. And this is unfortunately YouTube friendly, but I think we can go ahead and show this. Let's do this here, and we'll come back on the other side and give you our thoughts on the reveal. All right, that's not bad. Like, I had to
not be excited.
So for the YouTube crowd, it started as kind of the haunt is on, it's time for the haunt. and then it shows wraparound goals and players hitting players and all of that stuff, and then it ends up with the logo, and we'll show you that very logo here for the YouTube bunch here. There we go. We can show you the logo. There you go. Your thoughts on
love it.
said logo?
So when I first heard the name, it's because I saw someone else mention it, and I didn't actually see the logo or anything yet. And I was like, man, Ghost Pirates, that kind of sounds like a minor league baseball team name.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw the video and I saw the logo, and this is perfect for minor league hockey. I think I believe that even further after Travis mentioned the confusion everyone had after the Swamp Rabbits, because I remember that happening now that he mentioned it. This is a beautiful example of we're going to get to see some great marketing tricks.
Oh, yeah.
There is a ton of places to go. The neon green look is going to be really unique. I think it'd be cool to see some of the lines in the ice be a different color, kind of like Kansas City does.
Yeah.
They have orange lines behind the goal and stanchions. Neon green's going to look really cool.
Yeah. Couldn't you see neon green lines on the ice?
I could see it. Yeah.
I mean, that's, or gray lines. Could you imagine being a broadcaster? Because there's a little bit of gray in that logo. Could you imagine being a broadcaster and going, well, here comes Bob past the gray line, and oh gosh, no, it's a blue line. But yeah, I mean, you could see all kinds of things here with this.
There is huge potential for a blackout jersey here, and that was what I instantly saw. This is going to be really cool for the entire ECHL, but especially the South Division. You've got, like we had mentioned, in South Carolina, you've got the Stingrays with their red, and you've got Greenville not too far away with their orange. This is a perfect color to rival both of those right there in the middle of all of this.
Yeah. I mean, I could see the Ghost Pirates with the green, black jersey, like what the Dallas Stars had. I think it was last year. They had,
their alternates.
Star trimmed out in green. Oh, man, I'm a sucker for that. I cannot wait. I will be getting some Ghost Pirate merch.
Absolutely. I love that they didn't try to incorporate a second color and just went green as the focus. Yeah. And then I like that they did that especially.
Yeah, I did too. I'm excited for this new franchise in Savannah. This logo just fires me up for it. Their arena is expected to be open later, I think, early next spring, if I remember right, from what Commissioner Creelan had told us earlier in the summer. And then they're going to have concerts and everything through the summer, and then we'll have hockey in Savannah, Georgia next year.
Less than a year.
Yeah, unbelievable.
And I'm of course excited because I am a diehard fan of the brand of Savannah Bananas, the baseball team down there. If you don't know anything about them, go Google them now. You can pause us and come back. It is such a unique baseball experience. It's not baseball. It's a brand new sport that they've created that has made baseball enjoyable for people to watch that normally didn't like it. So the fact they have that means that we're destined for a collab of some sort.
Oh yeah.
I'm excited to see how they work. This is another area of the country that's going to love having hockey there. I love that the ECHL is getting to expand a second year in a row, and the third year in 5, I guess.
3 and 5, yes.
So this is great for the ECHL. We're getting closer and closer to that 32 team level, which would equal us out with the other leagues, which would be huge as well. So I'm stoked for this. As soon as I saw it, I was excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I was too, and it kind of put a pretty good. It kind of put a pretty good end to a really bad news day for the ECHL. That's all you can. That's the first thing you think about is like, man, that from a news angle, like, okay, it was a really bad start to the day, and then it kind of ended not so bad, So good for the Savannah. For the Savannah, what is it? The Ghost Peppers? I think it is. Yes, good for them. And I think you can follow them on Twitter at Sav Ghost Peppers.
Those Pirates.
Ghost Pirates. Sorry, Ghost Peppers. Ghost Peppers, do not try. Do not recommend. Ghost Peppers. Ghost Pirates, pretty good hockey team. We'll see what they ice next year.
I'm definitely counting down the days to jersey reveal. Let's put it that way.
Oh my gosh, yes. I've got plenty of wall space behind me. If I'm not adding tornado pictures, then I
have nothing but options back here. Savannah, if you want to sponsor the backdrop of the 3 Periods pod, let's get some pirate decor.
Our people will call your people. Our people are really good, by the way. Let's talk about the first weekend of the ECHL. We saw the banner raising go up in Fort Wayne, and they came back and knocked off the Wheeling Nailers. Trois-Rivières got off to a bit of a slow start, still looking for their first win as they cross the international border and play Maine on Friday night. What else stands out to you from the weekend that was in the ECHL?
Yeah, I've got a set of 3 this or that's for you that stuck out to me from the weekend that I wanted to hear your thoughts on as well.
Okay.
Which is more surprising? The first one being Wichita's blank of Allen 7-0 on Friday night, or Saturday night, I'm sorry, or Allen's response on Sunday with a 6-3 win, which involved the huge efforts of Spencer Asachuk, Jack Combs, and Chad Costello.
It's got to be the 7-0 whitewashing of Allen Saturday night. Nobody saw that coming. Nobody. That's, you hate to say it, that maybe it was lightning in a bottle, but that's a disrespect to the players on the Thunder roster, and they did have quite a few holdovers. You and I do the pregame show for the team, and we talked about this going into that pregame show, that the leaders on the team from last year, Mateo Gennaro, Braden Watts, Jay Dickman, other players
Steven
on
Johnson,
defense, Steven Johnson, they all needed to step up, and they all needed to have big nights if this team were to go places this season. I think that they did have a big night, and fortunately they just weren't able to match it stride for stride with an Allen team that clearly has another gear offensively for them. I think the fact that Steve Martinson was able to change some things up on the power play helped them out, and going, I believe they went 2 for 5 on the power play on Sunday afternoon, and they scored a shorthanded goal. So where Wichita owned the special teams the night before, Allen owned the special teams on Sunday. And I think that the Allen result on Sunday was much more realistic than the Wichita result was on Saturday night.
And Allen's put out their warning this year that do not give them power play opportunities, or else they'll make you pay.
Right, yeah, and they're getting Frank Marotte back in net, and they play Utah this weekend, so they're going to have a pretty solid netminder there for them in net, and that's another set of days for Steve Martinson to work on power play, and you get a little bit more chemistry with Costello and Combs and all of that. I kind of wonder if maybe the 2 exhibition games were what caught Allen off guard. That Wichita had played those exhibition games, they had lines established.
Yeah.
And they go in there where Allen had not played a single one, go in there and pop them in the mouth.
Regardless, it's the fact that you're able to get a game at the formerly named Allen Event Center, Credit Union of Texas Event Center, I think is what it's called now. The fact that you can go down to that building and steal a win on opening night bodes well for your team. And there's no doubt that Thunder practice this week has been a step higher than it probably would have had you go in there and go 0-2 of the weekend. So
yeah,
I think there's positives that Wichita can carry from that. Plus, they didn't even have Bruce Ramsey behind the bench, it didn't sound like, because he wasn't feeling great over the weekend. So to have him come back and build to be behind the bench of an entire game, there's a lot of positives to look forward to. If you want to hear more about this team, we'll break it down tonight, Friday night, as we get set for Wichita and Utah tonight, if you want to hear the full details on Wichita stuff. The next this or that I've got for you is which one's more surprising, Newfoundland's 4-0, 0-0 start, or Trois-Rivières' 0-3?
Again, I kind of don't think that if you have over a dozen AHLers on your roster, 4-0-0 is really that surprising.
Yeah.
I think that Trois-Rivières 0-3 start is a little bit more surprising. I would have thought that they'd come out and win maybe the home game, the initial home game, just because of all of the emotion, and that seems to carry you for a little while.
Getting scored on 15 seconds in probably didn't bode well for him.
No, but I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm not really surprised by either start, really.
Yeah, it's tough that Trois-Rivières had to start all 3 games against Newfoundland. That's a pretty hard welcome to the league.
Yeah, that's a pretty that's the best way to put it. That's pretty tough. I don't really think. I still think TR is going to be right there at the end. That's a veteran laden team. That team knows what they're doing top to bottom, and I think that they'll be just fine. But if you're going up against, 3 lines deep of AHL forwards or AHL players on the Newfoundland Growlers, I mean, 0-3 is 0-3, and again, not all 0-3 records are created equal here in this league, and I think we'll find out the true TR club this weekend when they play Maine.
Absolutely. The last one I had for you was the other expansion team, Iowa, comes out, surprises everyone Friday night, and beats Kansas City 7-4. They had taken a 2-0 lead 3 minutes into the game. Also, if you need to go, if you want to go watch some other clips while you're hanging out here on this Friday, the opening goal of Iowa's season, that's one of the calls of the season. You've got to hear it.
David Fine brought it.
It was tremendous. It's worth every second of your time.
I had wife and I were out running errands Friday night, and I saw the ECHL tweet come across my phone, and I'm like, wow, I got to listen to this. And I did, and we were in the middle of this department store. She's looking around for clothes or whatever, and I'm standing there, and I'm literally, she's like, you have chills. I'm like, listen to this call. And I play it back for her, and she's like, it's just an announcer yelling. I'm like, no, it's the first goal in Iowa Heartlanders history, and David Fine nailed that call. Props.
I think he texted me right away and was like, you have to go listen to this right now.
Yes. Props to Finer. He nailed it.
But my this or that is, what was more surprising, Iowa coming out and winning 7-4 on opening night, or Kansas City bouncing back the next day, winning 5-3, and a ton of offense inside Coralville this weekend.
Yeah, and some shenanigans too.
Yeah.
Man, that one's tough. I think Iowa's going to be a really good team.
That Iowa team looks really good.
They do, and Jerry Fleming always
what a guy to start your franchise with.
Always has a good team. Like, Jerry Fleming does not miss the playoffs. So I think Iowa is going to end up with a really good team. I think their 7 goals on Kansas City is more impressive than Kansas City coming back and beating them 5-3 on Saturday. Don't ask me why, because I don't really have a good feeling on it. That's just where my gut is going right now. That's that hanging 7 goals in your first game together, and you've had lines and exhibition and all of that. You could just tell the momentum was squarely on their side from Jump Street, and the goals just kept on coming. And it felt like when you got 1 and 2 come up, then you knew the doors were just going to fly right open. So I feel like that in that way, that 7-goal spot on Kansas City is more impressive than the next night. But I'll tell you what, if I'm a Kansas City Mavericks fan or I'm an Iowa Heartlanders fan, that is going to be a good rivalry for years. It's going to be solid.
Well, a tiny sample, obviously, just one weekend of hockey. Many teams only played once. A handful played twice over the weekend, and then there were a few that played 3 and 4. Sits Newfoundland at the top of the North. Jacksonville at the top of the South. Again, that's just because they hung 5 on Florida in
That's
Estero.
the most surprising out of everything. We played 17
Probably.
games last week, and Jacksonville goes down to Estero, Florida, and pops Florida in the mouth, hanging 3 on them in the third period.
Yeah, if you're a team in the South Division, good luck this year. That is going to be tough.
That is a Jim Ross slobber knocker.
That feels like a 6 teams over 500, and the last team maybe is 2 or 3 under. Like it seems like a lot of these teams they're gonna beat each other up every night that they just stay even all year. I believe it now, and I think I'll probably believe it till the end of the season. We won't know the 4 seeds or their seeds until the last week of the season in this division because of how tight it is. And Jacksonville has firmly said, hey, we want in this conversation as well.
Nick Luco is a young coach, a good young coach. Look out for him. That star is not stopping in the northeast coast of Florida.
Kalamazoo with a nice 5-2 win over the weekend sits them atop the Central Division, an explosive team that has to play a Toledo squad. Toledo, we know, is not going to be getting help from the AHL, so they have to build from the ground up. We'll see how time deals with stuff there in the Central.
Toledo goes to Iowa for a pair of games this weekend. We could be looking at an 0-3 Walleye team when we reconvene next week.
Wow. That's a tough one to swallow.
That doesn't happen very often.
No. Then atop the Mountain Division right now, again, it's early, is an Idaho team who's 2-1-0. They put up 12 goals in 2 games. They looked really solid this weekend and surprised a lot of people playing a Utah squad that has a lot of AHL help.
Yeah, and I think it's just going to take some time for the Utah Grizzlies to mesh when you have that much talent on the roster and there's still a few pieces coming in and moving out. It just takes time to mesh. So I think we're going to see the true identity of this Utah team come in weeks 2, 3, 4, 5. Depending on how many AHL players can stay together there in Utah. I really think that is going to be the big storyline with the Grizzlies this year of, how does this Colorado Eagle Light roster stay together and develop together going forward in year 1 under Ryan Knazewicz.
It's set up to be one of the most exciting years of hockey we've seen in a long time. You can't look at, outside of maybe Newfoundland, who is looking years above some of these other teams. You really can't look at me and tell me these are the teams I think are making the playoffs right now because it's so hard after opening weekend. We'll walk you through every week and let you know our thoughts on it. And we'd love to hear your thoughts as well. You can reach out to us, like we said, on Twitter at 3periodspod or use the hashtag TPP on FPH. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the opening weekend and maybe your predictions going into this weekend and the next couple weekends. And speaking of predictions, it looks like it's time for overtime. And we've got a 5-pack of games for you that we're watching out for and that we'd like to give our thoughts on.
That's right.
Here in period 4. First one's going to be Trois-Rivières at Maine on Friday night. What are you looking for?
My pick to click this weekend, the Maine Mariners. I really like the addition of John Gillies in net for that hockey club. Kind of solidifies that position for Ben Geit's team. And, they have a little bit of offense there still with Alex Kyle on the shelf. And when they get back, that's going to add another extra layer of offense there for the Maine Mariners. It probably won't happen this weekend. Trois-Rivières comes in and they have, we talked about in the last segment, an 0-3 mark so far on the season. Again, it's hard to keep that team down for very long. I think they're getting their lumps. I just don't think that win number 1 in franchise history comes Friday night there in Cross Insurance Arena.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I think Maine is a team to watch. An impressive 6-3 win over Worcester to start the year. Then they were tied with Worcester 3-3 going into the third period there on Saturday and dropped that one late in the third. But that's a Maine team that I think has a lot of upside. Keep an eye on them for sure up there in the North Division. And you can hear all their games here on the FPH app.
Absolutely.
So the next one that we're looking at is Friday night as well. And we just mentioned it, Toledo at Iowa. What do we think there?
I mean, I, I don't know. Like, I'm sitting here making noises, and everybody's like, "Come on, Harding, spit it out." I don't know. Like you think that this Toledo group is going to put it together. That's a pretty veteran laden group that Dan Watson has assembled, and with some really good talent around. Brandon Hawkins, you have TJ Hensick there playing again this year. John Albert, who you and I have watched here in Wichita as a decent sitterman there for the Toledo Walleye, and then you have Billy Christopoulos and net. They're going to put it together at some point. I think that first win of the season for the Walleye may come this weekend in Iowa, and the Heartlanders will fall below 500.
Be careful though. That's an Iowa team that is gonna sit there at your ankles and bite at them all night long.
Yeah,
they seem to be a team that the second you let up the gas pedal, there's one in the back of your own net. So
yeah,
that is a great addition to a already stacked Central Division. Iowa's going to be a fun team to watch all year. I like Iowa in this one this weekend. I think that the loss to Kansas City, while it was close, still reminds them that this is hockey, and there's nights you're going to be on, there's nights you're going to be off. And they certainly weren't off in their loss, but couldn't quite get it as much. That opening night win is going to bode well for this Iowa team and really pull them together. Like we mentioned, Gary Fleming is one of the best minds in the ECHL now. A huge addition for them. I like Iowa in that one. Our third game turns the page to Saturday, Reading at Adirondack. What do you like there?
I like Reading here, and I mean, if you look at their points, and yes, they've only played. I think they've only played like 2 games so far this season, but if you look, Matthew Strome's out to a really good year so far, 6 points. Josh Winquist with 5, Patrick Bykoff with 4 points. All of those goals for him. Then you have players like Frank DiChiara, who has a pair of assists in a couple of games. Pat Nagel has been really good for the Reading Royals in net. He formerly of the American Hockey League's Grand Rapids Griffins and Toledo Walleye. He comes back to the ECHL and plays there in Reading this year. 3.14 goals against average, 1-0-1 for Patty Nags there so far this year. I think he's going to be a really good backstop for them. This is a team that is loaded with talent from Lehigh Valley, and they're putting it together early on, and they're going to have to and I think that's going to be the difference there in a pretty tough place to play there in Glens Falls with the Adirondack Thunder.
Yeah, I also like Reading in this one, and a lot of it is the backstops. Pat Nagel is going to be a fun guy to have behind you, and if Kirill Istomenko, the Philadelphia prospect, can start to figure his stuff out, he's only appeared in 1 game, only played for 12 minutes, and did give up 3 goals and had to be relieved. But I think once he starts to get his feet underneath him and feel a little bit better, that's going to be a solid backup for Pat Nagel, and these two could make it tough for teams in the North to score against them. I'm really looking forward to Reading and a Pat Nagel who's in game form, feeling good, play like Newfoundland, and a team that can really put up goals, and see how they bode against them. Our fourth game of the weekend turns to the Mountain Division, where Rapid City's on the road to take on Idaho. What do we like there?
This is the assistant coach in Scott Burt for Idaho back when they played 2 years ago, going back to Idaho to take on his former boss, Everett Sheen. So that's why I selected this game. But Rapid City has gotten off to a pretty decent start, 1-1 in their first couple of games, 500. They're averaging 3.5 goals a game while allowing 3. But I think that this is a Rapid City team that could be very much like Wichita all year and really kind of be in that conversation. I think we feel like the first 3 teams are locked in to the Mountain in Idaho, Allen, and Kansas City, some form of that combination there. But I think of those next 4, Tulsa, Rapid City, Wichita, Utah, I think that those 4 teams will be fighting for that 4th spot all year, and I think that Rapid City is going to be right there all year with the likes of Wichita, Tulsa, and Utah fighting there in that 4th position. I think if they were to get in, or if they just get to 500 this year for Rapid City, that's going to be a good year for Scott Burt in year 1.
Yeah.
And the playoffs are going to be another year away for Rapid City, unfortunately. But if they can just start the process of bringing in higher caliber players to Rapid City and bringing in Scott Burt type players there, the success will find him very easily there in the Black Hills.
Yeah, I like Rapid City.
Yeah, go ahead.
I like Rapid City. I was impressed the way that they started the season. A 4-2 win over Tulsa, and then a heartbreaking way to lose game 2 as they gave up the game-winning goal with just over a minute left.
Yeah.
They look like a team that can compete. Obviously, it's so early to know much.
Right.
But I like what is happening up in the Black Hills as of right now. We won't know who's going to steal that last playoff spot for a while between these 2 teams and Wichita, and I guess Utah as well. It's such a toss-up to see who might sneak their way into that last spot. A lot of quality play could take place, and I agree with you. I think Rapid City's successful year looks like about a 500 year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I don't know. I think the Idaho defense is pretty good. Normally you could say that the Idaho goaltending is really good. I think the Idaho offense is really good. They have 4 guys who have 4 points right now, getting ready to play this weekend. I'm just not sure about the defense right now, but again, teams have played just under a handful of games, so we don't really know the makeup of these teams yet. But give me Idaho for this contest on Saturday night.
And then our final game of the weekend that we want to take a little bit of a closer look at is Jacksonville at Orlando on Sunday. Some action going on down in the South Division. Who do you like there?
Man, Francois Bessard had a 1 goals against average in his only start, only allowed 1 goal, and he picked up the win there. I think I like Orlando's offense a little bit better. So I'm going to go with Orlando, Jake McGrew, Aaron Luchik, Michael Brodzinski on the blue line. And then you have Joe Garafa up front, who we saw in Allen last year. Give me Orlando in this contest. I just like Orlando's offense a little bit better right now than I like the Jacksonville offense.
Yeah, I want Orlando as well, and it's because of that offense. They went 2 for 6 on the power play against Atlanta in their first game and really had no signs of slowing down. The power plays that they didn't do as well on were early in the game, and then they scored on the 2 there in the in the early stages of the second period, and then the late stages of the third period. That's a power play that has some of the names that can carry an offense. Jake McGrew and Aaron Luchich. This is an Orlando team once again that's ready to fight for not only a South Division title, but maybe an Eastern Conference title.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see if Drake Berehowski can put it together for his hockey club this year and get Orlando past the hump, if you will, into 2nd, 3rd, and potentially a 4th round there of the Kelly Cup playoffs. So we'll keep tabs on our picks this year. Be a little friendly competition between the Mats. I don't know. Maybe the winner will buy somebody a pitcher of beer. I don't know.
We'll see how it goes.
What's that?
We'll see how it goes, right?
We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. You actually are headed out here to see me for the pregame show tonight when the Thunder take on the Utah Grizzlies as we raise the curtain on the 30th season of Wichita Thunder hockey inside Intrust Bank Arena. And it'll be good to see you, my friend, and safe travels out here. And we have a nice cold spot waiting for you on the 4th floor where I will see you Friday night.
Yeah, I'm excited to be back in a hockey venue. I haven't gone to any of the Evansville Thunderbolts games yet here in Eville, so I'm excited to get back in a barn I feel familiar with, and a team that I have some hope in. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited for this whole weekend of the ECHL. If you have a game you're looking at that's special, hit us up on Twitter. We'd like to know what you're looking for, your big picks of the weekend. If you want to give us your picks for these 5 games, let us know. We won't track yours. You'll have to track your own. I'm sorry. But once again, we're set up for a great weekend of ECHL hockey. Lots of news that came out today, or Wednesday, I guess it was. We'll keep you updated with everything we know. Keep us in your back pocket there at 3 Periods Pod on Twitter, and that's where we can give you all the latest news and updates. I think that's just about it for us.
That's it. Just want to mention quickly, you can listen to Trois-Rivières and Maine tonight on the Field Pass Hockey app at 7 o'clock Eastern time there with Michael Keeley on the call. And then we also have on Saturday night, you'll be able to hear the Wichita-Utah game. Matt and I will have the pregame show starting tonight at 6:30 Central time here on the Field Pass Hockey app. Tomorrow night, you'll be able to hear you'll be able to hear the Wheeling Nailers travel to Wichita to take on the Thunder. 6:30 pregame show with Matt and I, and it'll be a 7-5 face-off inside Intrust Bank Arena. South Carolina takes on Greenville Saturday night, and you can also hear Jacksonville-Greenville Friday night on the ECH or on the Field Pass Hockey app. Man, I'm all over the map here. And then finally, the ECHL weekend ends with Reading at Maine, a 2:40 pregame with Michael Keeley on the call. 3 o'clock face-off right here on the ECHL app. Come on, Harding. It is the Field Pass Hockey app, and you can get that wherever you get your apps from, iTunes or Google Play. So a lot of hockey games to get to this weekend. I think we have 17 in all, including 7 on the app here tonight. We'll follow it up with another 6-pack on Saturday.
It's going to be great.
Absolutely.
Well, our thanks one more time to Zack Power, to Travis Rogers. For Matthew Harding, I'm Matthew Will. Thanks for joining us for another edition of the 3 Periods podcast. We'll join you in some iteration next week. Keep an eye out on Twitter, and we'll let you know when to find us. Thanks for joining us for another edition, and we hope you enjoy this weekend of ECHL hockey. Thanks for joining us.
You've been listening to the 3 Periods podcast. Do you have a topic you'd like discussed? Hit us up on Twitter at 3 Periods Pod with the hashtag TPP on FPH. And for the latest news on the ECHL and minor league hockey, visit fieldpasshockey.com.
They're going home.
Thanks, Coach.
Hello, everyone. Rob Paneer here. It's hockey time, and that means that there is a lot to do for Field Pass. Plus, I run a ministry, and I'm currently working on my doctorate. I have a lot to do already, but wouldn't you know my wife would like more than 5 minutes of my time each day? I need to ensure that I am at my absolute best, and this is where Pure Energy has been a godsend. Pure is made of all natural products and helps to boost my energy while also helping me to think more clearly. I am getting more done than ever before, and there is no big letdown with Pure. I get 6 to 8 hours of great energy and clear thinking at a cost that is far less than you pay for store-bought energy drinks. Plus, Pure is actually good for your health. If you're looking to energize your day and get more done, then you need a dose of the Pure Performance. To find out more, go to thepureperformance.com and fill out the request form. That's thepureperformance.com. Someone will get in touch with you right away, helping you to get on the Pure Performance pathway to success.